Welcome back, peeps. This footage that we're looking at right now, in my opinion, this is as good and in many ways better than the Patterson footage. Well, what do you mean, Michael? It's all blurry. It's just a blob squatch. Yeah, I know it's nowhere near as clear as the Patterson footage, but look what's taken place here. Now, supposedly this came from up in Canada at an oil well, and I had to get this footage from a video that Thinker Thunker did because I couldn't find the original footage, and he didn't link it in the description bar. And I have to say that I completely agree with Thinker Thunker's analyses on this. In fact, I think I'm even more impressed by it than he seemed to be. If you look closely, this thing is launching this tree with one arm. Now, about the only thing that you could compare this to is the Scottish games where they toss that big log, but they use two hands. And they don't throw it like this. They flip it. So it rotates on the center of its axes. And usually they just flip it like one time. This creature is launching a tree one-handed. And it's launching it a hell of a long ways. If we were to conservatively say that this creature is 5-6 feet tall, which seems reasonable given the distance. So let's say it's 6 feet tall. If the creature is 6 foot tall, then that branch that tree it's launching is like 20 feet long. And it's got a root ball. You can tell when the tree lands that it's not like some old, dried up, rotten tree that falls apart. No, look at that. It stays together. Like, that's a relatively fresh tree. And I'm going to say, looking at the trees in the background there and knowing what I know about northern trees, that's probably either a birch tree or a popple. Aspen for you guys that live out west. And while you can't really determine the diameter of that, it's a substantial tree. I mean, look at it. That's not like a 2 or 3 inch pole. That's like a 6 to 8 inch, at least a 6 inch in diameter tree, I would guess. So if we conservatively figured that, for every foot, and any of you guys that have cut firewood or done any work with wood, you know that a 6 to 8 inch log that's, say, a foot long, that's at least 5 pounds. 5 to 10 pounds. Let's say it was 5 pounds, and let's say that this tree is 20 feet long. That's 50 pounds. That's like a sack of grain. And this creature is throwing this like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, at least 60 feet. It's throwing it 50 or 60 feet. I mean, good grief. This blows me away. This is unbelievable. I'm just amazed that this hasn't gotten more coverage. Like, why is this not in the news? I mean, I suppose the skeptics will quickly want to... I adjusted the contrast there, made it a little darker so you can see that branch. But look at the arc this thing takes. This is throwing a tree with a root ball at least 50 or 60 feet and probably 30, 40 feet up in the air. Like, that's a hell of an arc. One-handed, no less. Look at that. One-handed. And that arm looks big. Like, I don't think we're seeing all the creature. Look at the length of that arm. I mean, I don't care how you slice it. This is doing something that's impossible for a human being to do. This is throwing a tree like a human would throw a javelin. And I don't know what the record is for a javelin throw, but I mean, when you're throwing a javelin, you're throwing something that's, I don't know, an inch, half inch in diameter. This is a tree. This isn't a broomstick that this thing is throwing. This is a whole tree. And then you could ask the question, well, Where did it get the tree? Like, this isn't something that it just found laying on the ground. This, with a root ball, it looks like this creature pulled this thing up by the roots. Which, once again, if you've messed around with trees, you know that it's darn near, it's almost impossible to pull anything up other than a small shrub, unless the ground's super wet. A person, a human being, is not going to go into the forest and uproot a tree. And you're sure to hell not going to launch it, even if you were one of those expert Scottish guys. I challenge anyone to do this, to go out and to take any kind of, even a small tree, even if you just took something that was a couple inches across and was 20 feet long with a root ball, you try throwing it one-handed. Like, I've done tree work. Like, I used to drive a bucket truck for a tree removal service. I've moved a lot of trees, and I've cut my own firewood since I was about 14 years old. I've been cutting firewood every year, so I've handled a lot of wood. Wood is heavy. I mean, if this is a fresh tree, like not something that's been dried undercover, you're looking at least 5 pounds a foot, and maybe 10 pounds a foot. So you're looking at 50 to, this could weigh up to 100 pounds. This is, without any doubt whatsoever, it's got to weigh at least 50 pounds. One-handed. Try to take anything. Try to take a bowling, let's take a bowling ball. What are those, like 15 pounds? Try throwing a bowling ball one-handed 50 or 60 feet. You can't do it unless you're like, the world's strongest man. The physical attributes that this thing is showing is so far beyond the capability of a human that it boggles my mind. Yeah, see when it hits? Like, that's not like a dried piece of dry kai that's, going to snap off. This tree is substantial. It stays in one piece. And for us to see it at that distance, it's got to be a substantial tree. Like, it's not a small tree. It's a good-sized tree. I'm telling you, man, this footage really makes me question, because this is kind of like the behavior that you would see a gorilla engage in if it was PO'd. Like, look how strong I am. This is a paradox. This is why that I've decided to use the Latin term Homo paradoxus similis to describe Bigfoot, because they appear to be Homo something. They're bipedal. They look like a human. They're very similar to us in their outward appearance, yet they're so paradoxical in everything that they do. Look at that. One arm grabs onto the root ball, launches that thing with one arm like an Olympic athlete would be launching a javelin. Yeah, I would challenge anybody to duplicate this. And I would love, if any of you guys know where the original footage is, please give me the link, because I would love to look at the original footage and get a chance, because this is like, second, third generation. I've had to pull this off from YouTube, thus it's even blurrier than normal. But even in spite of the blur, I don't think anyone would question that this is a one-arm throw by a creature that we're only probably seeing about half the creature. It looks large, like it looks massive. There's no way in hell this is a guy in a monkey suit. It's not possible. I don't believe that a person could do this. I'd be really curious. I might, when the snow melts, there's like 2 feet of snow, and the snow melts, I might try to get out and just throw some branches, throw some trees, just to see. Like, I know what the results are going to be, because even if you take something that's just, say 2 inches in diameter, that's 20 feet long, you're not going to toss it very far. Especially with one arm. This is like an overhand toss that this thing does. Remarkable. Absolutely amazing. I'd be really curious for you guys to poke a hole in my logic on this one. If someone, thinks this is a person in a suit, I challenge you to go out and even take a small sapling and duplicate this behavior. And I suppose we could do some more calculations, but I'm guessing this is throwing about a 20-foot branch, about 30 or 40 feet in elevation, and it's throwing it a good 60 feet in distance. And if that's something, even if that weighed 20 pounds, let's say it only weighed 20 pounds, you're not going to do that. And if it weighs 50 pounds, oh my gosh, unbelievable. This is some incredible evidence to support the Sasquatch phenomenon. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. It helps for other people to see this because YouTube has got its algorithms that, all screwy unless it's thumbs up. And I would love for you guys to leave comments. I'm so interested in what you guys think of this. And I'll have a link in the bottom bar to my Patreon account. I just recently wrote another article there, which I think you guys might find interesting, which is available to everybody. It's a great spot if you're interested in donating funding, trying to fund our research, but it's not necessary to see most of the material that I have on there. And you guys know the social media drill. Send this to a friend, argue with them, and spread this like a virus.